June 24, 1944, Flight Lieutenant David Hornell guides his silver Catalina over the freezing Norwegian Sea. He scans the horizon for any hidden German U-boats, maintaining a steady course through the thick, desolate cloud layers. Hornell's keen eyes detect a suspicious vessel floating on the waves. Identifying the German U-boat, he immediately slams the battle alarm, banking his heavy aircraft into a steep, aggressive dive to intercept the deadly enemy. The German U-boat glides across the choppy surface. Oberleutnant Aaron Stauerberg stands on the bridge, shouting commands to his crew as they prepare for the aerial assault from the approaching Canadian bomber diving above the U-boats. Flak guns roar, spitting tracers at the Catalina. Ernst Sauerberg watches with focus as his crew fires continuously, aiming to shred the plane's wings before the depth charges can be released into sea. Heavy flak shells puncture the Catalina's fuselage. David Hornell fights the vibrating control yoke as sparks ignite and acrid smoke fills the cockpit, forcing the crew to struggle for control during the intense, lethal dive. In the radio compartment, Sidney Cole prepares an emergency signal. Suddenly, a shell tears through the metal wall, wounding him. Cole collapses onto the deck, clutching his side as the radio equipment ignites in flames. Despite the agony, Cole drags himself back to the radio to send the message. He is unaware that the damage has destroyed the equipment, cutting their only link to the outside world as sparks fly. Hornell dives through tracers, ignoring the failed radio. He pushes the nose down, aiming at the U-boat. The front gunner opens fire, the Browning guns rattling as shell casings rain down into the sea. A massive explosion rips through the right engine as a flak shell hits. Fire engulfs the wing, and thick black smoke trails behind the Catalina as Hornell maintains his desperate attack. Run toward the submarine. Hornell struggles to keep the burning plane level. Beside him, the co-pilot fights the shaking controls, their faces illuminated by the inferno. They're determined to finish the mission, refusing to pull away from target. At the precise moment, Hornell releases the depth charges. The canisters fall from the wings, tumbling toward U-1225's deck as the Catalina roars overhead, its engines screaming under the immense, destructive heat of fire. The depth charges detonate against U-1225. Massive waterspouts erupt, shaking the submarine. Aaron Stauerberg and his crew are thrown across the deck as the vessel takes on water, beginning its final descent into ocean. With the engine failing, Hornell prepares for a crash landing. He fights the heavy plane toward the turbulent waves, screaming at the co-pilot to brace for a violent impact on the freezing Norwegian Sea. The Catalina slams into the water with a roar. Cockpit glass shatters, and icy waves surge inside, dragging the plane down. Hornell and his crew struggle to escape the sinking fuselage before it disappears. Hornell and the survivors crawl out onto the sinking wings. They inflate a small yellow dinghy as the Catalina disappears. The crew huddles together, surrounded by the vast sea and freezing Arctic winds. Survivors drift in freezing water, their breath visible in the air. Sidney Cole groans in pain, while Hornell watches the horizon, hoping for a rescue that seems impossible in this desolate part of the world. Hours pass as the cold seeps into their bones. Hornell encourages his men to stay awake, knowing sleep means death. They watch the darkening sky, waiting for any sign of hope in the night. As the first night falls over the Arctic, David Pop Hornell maintains a vigilant watch. He constantly monitors his shivering crew, fighting back the overwhelming numbness of hypothermia while hope for a rescue begins to fade. High waves threaten to swamp the fragile yellow dinghy throughout the dark, agonizing hours. Hornell encourages his exhausted men to keep bailing water, refusing to let the cruel Norwegian Sea claim his brave brothers. Sidney Cole's condition worsens as the freezing water saps his remaining strength. David Pop Hornell leans over to comfort his friend, sharing words of courage despite the spray of icy saltwater hitting their faces. Through the mist of the second day, a faint engine drone reaches their ears. Hornell searches the gray horizon, his eyes bloodshot from the salt, desperately looking for the silhouette of a friendly rescue aircraft. An RAF Warwick aircraft emerges from the clouds, circling the survivors. David Pop Hornell waves his arms frantically, signaling their position while the rescue crew prepares to drop the life-saving Lindholm gear into the water. The Warwick crew releases the Lindholm containers. 5 metal canisters connected by long ropes plunge into the sea, splashing near the raft. Hornell watches intently, knowing these supplies are their only chance of survival. Cruel currents and strong winds push the supplies away from the survivors. David Hornell watches in despair as the rescue gear drifts into the distance, beyond the reach of his exhausted, freezing crew members. Realizing the danger, Hornell dives into the icy water without hesitation. He swims toward the drifting containers, fighting against the numbing cold to secure the gear that will keep his men alive for another day. Hornell reaches the rope and pulls it back toward the dinghy, exhausted and barely conscious from the cold. He is hauled back aboard by Bernard Kirk and Graham Campbell, his body shaking from extreme exposure. A second aircraft remains overhead, guiding the rescue ship HMS Barents through the storm. The crew watches the horizon as the silhouette of the ship finally appears, signaling the end of their 21-hour ordeal. The HMS Barents maneuvers alongside the tiny yellow raft. Sailors on deck throw ropes and life buoys to the survivors, their faces filled with concern as they see the battered and frozen state of the Canadian airmen. Sidney Cole is the first to be lifted onto the ship. Sailors work quickly to secure him in a stretcher, carefully hoisting the wounded radio operator up the side of the hull while David Hornell watches closely. David Hornell ensures every member of his crew is safe before allowing himself to be rescued. His strength finally fails as he is pulled onto the deck, his heart stopping shortly after reaching the safety of ship. The surviving crew members gather in the medical bay, mourning the loss of their heroic captain. David Hornell and Sidney Cole are remembered for their bravery, having given everything to ensure the mission's success and survival. For his extraordinary heroism and leadership, David Hornell is posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross. His sacrifice becomes a symbol of courage for the Royal Canadian Air Force, inspiring generations of pilots to follow in his footsteps.